So today I'm going to do a video about how the media portrays women as victims when the statistics don't necessarily add up, and why I don't understand why there's always this portrayal of women being more victims than men. I will start with, let's get it on my screen, I'll put it up on your screen. So we start with a recent Ofcom report. Now there was a recent Ofcom report, and on the Ofcom website it says Ofcom urges tech firms to keep women safer online. Well, why single out women to be kept safer online? Why not just say Ofcom urges tech firms to keep people safer online? That's the headline. So Ofcom urges tech firms to keep women safer online. But when you look down at the statistics and the information, it actually goes further on to show that actually online abuse affects everybody. And the ironic thing with the Ofcom thing is that, I'll scroll through and read from here. So it says women feel impact of online harm. You know, this is about how people feel. So it's not even statistics about actually something happen. So this is about feelings. But let's read through. They've got three main bullet points. So it says contact relating to negative body image, excess dieting, or eating disorders. So that's 9% of women versus 6% of men. Misogynistic content, which objectifies women, demeans or otherwise negatively portrays women. 9% versus 7%. That's female to male. Content relating to self-harm or suicide, and that's 4% versus 2%. It then goes on to say that men who go online are more likely than women to have seen or experienced scam, fraud or phishing content, 30% versus 25% male to female. Misinformation, 25% versus 19% male to female, and content depicting violence, 11% to male versus 7% female. So there are three main bullet points for male and female working either way, yet the headline says Ofcom urges tech firms to keep women safer online. Why just women? Why not everybody? So that's my first one, and I've noticed this quite a lot over the last few years, and it just niggles me, so that's why I thought I'd make a video. So let's move on to something else. What was the other one I was going to do? Let me just find the screenshot that I took. That was it. This is the BBC one. So going back to this one, on the BBC there was a headline saying women working more paid hours as men work less. So the headline's suggesting that women are working more paid hours as men work less, which is technically correct. However, when you actually look more into it, and if I've got it on here. So yeah, so further down it says that since 1970 women have increased. So since the 1970s, women have increased their paid working hours by more than 5 hours to 22 hours per week, and have cut unpaid hours duties by almost 3 hours. Now, meanwhile, men have cut their paid hours by more than 8 to 34 hours a week. The number of unpaid has increased more than 5 a week. So effectively, if we go to working hours as opposed to what they call unpaid hours, which is where you're at home cleaning, cooking, looking after your children, which to me is not hours. I look after my children, I enjoy being with my children, I don't see that as a chore. I'm making my own dinner, or my wife making me dinner, that is just how we work. If I'm doing gardening, building, DIY, that is us working as a team. We don't see it as hours, but if we concentrate on paid hours, if you look, actually, so the headline is women working more as men work less, but technically men have always historically worked more. So it's saying that women have increased their hours to 22 hours a week, but then it goes on to say that men are working 34 hours a week. Well, men are working 12 hours more a week, which is more than 50% more than the 22. 11 hours a week extra would be twice as much, an extra 50%. But why? So why the headline that it's about women? If you go further on, I mean, if you look historically since the 1970s, and I'll put a graph up on the screen. If you look historically since the 1970s, if you look on the chart here, men have historically always worked more hours than women. We're talking pay. The gap is closing. So when people talk about pay gap, which isn't really a thing anymore, I do now work for the same company as my wife. I technically earn less money because I'm new starter to the job, but had I been working the same amount of time, I'd be earning exactly the same as my wife. The only time it makes a difference is when people get into higher paid jobs, and then they start negotiating their pay, and that's when differences in pay start to show. But hey, who's to say what's the right amount of pay for anybody? News presenters seem to be paid a ridiculously lot of money for what they do. Footballers like Marcus Rashford get paid extremely lot of money for what they do, and every man on that pitch gets paid differently. So, you know, day to day, generally working class people, if they do the same job, they get paid the same pay, unless they are in a position where they're negotiating different pay for different roles, which again is a different thing. So yeah, so that's another thing. So that was another thing that I found weird, was that the headline was about women working more as men work less, when men are still working around 50% more hours a week than women. So why say women are working more? Hey, who knows? And the third one I'll bring up, and I'm sure there's lots of other examples, is about the whole, following the tragic murder of Sarah Everard. There was this whole thing about protecting women and girls, women and girls, women and girls, women and girls. Now, statistically, I've got, if you look on the screen now, put up some a graph. So statistically, men are murdered a far greater number than women are. Yet again, the headline is all about men being misogynistic, which I don't believe for a minute. No talk of misandry, which is women hating men. Men are all misogynistic, and violence against women and girls. Yet the statistics show that men are killed at a far higher rate than women. Usually by men. Don't get me wrong. It's usually by men. But hey, you know, men are more violent. It's a genetic thing. Statistics, you know, don't lie. But anyway, I'm going off the point. But it's all about these headlines about why, as a nation, we've started portraying women as victims and males as, you know, there's nothing there for males as such. I don't know why we do it. I don't know why the headlines are misleading. But there we go. So that's my analysis, is that we get misleading headlines about gender inequality, when actually look behind the headlines, and actually sometimes, certainly with the hours worked, men work far more hours than women statistically. Is that wrong? You know, should men be working more hours than women a week, you know, in paid work? And men get killed at a much higher rate than women. Is that right? So let's. The reason I make this video is because I want to move away from this whole. What's the word I'm looking for? I want to move away from this whole victim mentality that we seem to have, because it really just starts getting on my nerves. So anyway, have a look at statistics and see what you think for yourself. Thank you. Bye.